Zine Hanzu, Jennifer Wickham, Sydney, Gidimt'en is then Cassia Hasley. I am Jennifer Wickham of the Gidimt'en clan. I belong to the Cassia, which is the Grizzly Bear House. And I live in Wet'suwet'en Territory in what is now known as Smithers, British Columbia.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and to keep us updated on the amazing struggle that's been happening out there. February the 6th of this year is going to mark, quite an anniversary. It'll be the 1-year anniversary of the invasion of RCMP police into Wet'suwet'en territory to arrest, several of the matriarchs, several of the land defenders there. And so I guess, can you just start by maybe sharing with us some of your thoughts and feelings, thinking back this 1-year anniversary to February 6, 2020?
There's actually 2 anniversaries of invasions happening in Wet'suwet'en territory. And so one of them was just happened on January 7th. And that was the invasion of the Gidimt'en checkpoint that happened in 2019. And then we're coming up to the 1-year anniversary of a much more extensive invasion of Wet'suwet'en territory that included 3 camps on Gidimt'en territory, and then of course of Unistoten territory as well. And it's been, I was thinking about this, and it's been such a wild and I can't even think of the right word. It's been such a wild year. So we started off the year with the eviction of CGL. And that was January 4th was the anniversary of that eviction. And so from January 4th until February 6th, Wet'suwet'en Yintah was like completely free of RCMP and CGL, which was so beautiful and so empowering and so liberating. And I think really inspiring for other people to be able to take control over their territories and assert their jurisdiction. Because even with our treated relatives, they never signed over their land. The treaties were an agreement to live together and work together and share the resources. Canada's been a little stingy, so and disrespectful, to say the least. So I think, yeah, it was such a powerful start to 2020, and it felt so amazing, and we saw so much happening out on the Yintah, that like moose coming back and the animals coming back to the territory that weren't around because there was so much traffic and so much activity from CGL. And so, yeah, it was a really, really beautiful time. And, I, of course, there was a lot of bullshit, right? They put up their exclusion zone at 27-kilometer, and then we built the extra camp at 20, just before the exclusion zone. So we're like, you can't keep us off our territory. Like, really, it was a beautiful thing. And it was so just lovely to see all the support and the folks that would come out. We had a bunch of supporters from like the Hazelton and Gidimt'en area that came and just, they're like, oh, you need another camp? Okay. And they brought supplies and people and threw up a couple buildings. And then we had the 27-kilometer camp. And one of my favorite memories is like of that month. Of course, there was a lot of trying to bring in supplies and go back and forth to the 39-kilometer camp, to the watch camp. But 27 was really a place for our community to come out and show their support. And I just remember having, we had like a little concert. I think it was closer to the end of January. And, so many Indigenous musicians came out, and we started up the generator and got a little stage set up. And it was so beautiful. The kids had a pinata that was actually um, uh, RCMP paddy wagon pinata, which I don't think anyone even got photos of. So I just have to throw that in there. Um, it was super fun for everybody. And it was just, a way of folks that maybe weren't able to contribute or show up in other ways to come out and really lift up spirits of people that were, you know, um, staying at the 27-kilometer camp. And for us, just to have kind of like a celebratory moment, because it was kind of a big deal. Um, and then, of course, on February 6th, we got a call at 5 o'clock in the morning that the RCMP were going into the 39-kilometer camp. And we're going to be putting together some footage and releasing kind of an anniversary video of some things that everything was happening so fast last year, and things were happening like right on top of each other. So there was like the 39-kilometer camp, and then 27-kilometer camp, and 44-kilometer, like Gidimt'en camp, the checkpoint at 44, and then Gidimt'en at 66. And it was just like 5 days of intensity. And I think things just kind of like, in the same way that the RCMP steamrolled in, like the footage and the news and everything just kind of, we were doing our best to get things out on everything that happened, but it wasn't possible. And so there are going to be some things coming out on our Facebook page, footage that hasn't been seen. And so one of the things about that first day at 39-kilometer is that the RCMP were really restrictive to the media. And so they wanted them to wait 100 meters down the road, and explicitly told them that if they filmed or took photos of the guys in green, that they would be arrested. And so they had these guys in like paramilitary uniforms, and like all green uniforms, and the semi-automatic weapons. And we had somebody that was in one of the vehicles that was like communicating over a truck radio to everybody else what was happening at 39-kilometer. And that person had the window smashed in, and they were dragged out of the vehicle. And nobody at that camp was in violation of the injunction. Nobody at 27-kilometer camp was in violation of the injunction. Like, both of those camps were set far enough back off the road that there's no way that they could even pretend that what they were doing was legal. And people were not charged right from those arrests. And I think it's pretty telling that after 2 invasions, all those civil charges were dropped. There was never a breach of the injunction charge that was followed through with. And so their intention is really clear, that they just wanted to remove the people from the territory so that CGL could continue their work. And with no hesitation, or they got lethal oversight, so that if they had to shoot and kill one of us, they had permission to do that. And so it was by any means necessary on their part to like remove the people from the land, um, for this outrageous project that they're planning. So yeah, I think having like we started calling winter raid season. And so like this winter, I think there was moving into December, there's um, some anxiety and apprehension around that because, we've experienced an invasion by the RCMP 2 years in a row in 2019 and 2020. And that hasn't happened, thank goodness, so far. Um, but it was kind of this, really powerful and empowering time in January and February of last year. And, our hereditary chiefs went out east and, shut down Canada was happening. And we went to Tyendinaga and Ganawage where they were holding the tracks. And it was really kind of surreal, I think. But a really important time to be building those relationships and showing solidarity with each other. And then it was, when we were flying out from BC to Toronto, one of our videographers was like, "Oh, they've had their first case of COVID in Toronto, like in the Toronto airport. They've just had," and I'm like, calm down, like one case, having absolutely no idea how contagious this thing is and how fast it was going to spread. And so looking back, I'm like, oh, I can't believe we took our chiefs through that airport. Like everybody was fine, thank goodness. I mean, who knew that COVID was going to be such a thing?
Who knew?
And then, yeah, the global pandemic was declared, a few weeks after we got home. And, the provincial and federal governments at that point had come and said, hey, can we talk? Can you guys like open Canada again, please? um, and then the pandemic was declared and nothing could happen. And I think that really put a lot of pressure on folks, certainly in Tyendinaga and Ganawage and other communities, Six Nations and Ganastake that were like holding space and doing solidarity actions. And everything just went from Wet'suwet'en, shut down Canada to COVID-19.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm. And I
yeah.
wanted to actually ask you, because I know that's one of the things that that you guys are trying to draw attention to through your website, yintaccess.com, is the health impact, of course, of having these man camps, like these work camps for Coastal GasLink up on your territory. Um, when we think about like sovereignty, I think one of the important things that settlers should be thinking about is not only sovereignty over the land, but also like, sovereignty so that communities can, protect the health of the people in them and of their loved ones. And so, unfortunately, there have been COVID outbreaks that have happened at these work camps and on Wet'suwet'en territory. And so I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and update us on the situation.
Oh, yeah, it's really, I mean, it's devastating to our communities, and it's really frustrating. There was a letter sent to Dr. Bonnie Henry, um, that is our provincial health officer, from Artsakose. So it's our matriarchs and female chiefs. And we never got a response. And then our Denise, which is our house chiefs, sent a letter, and they got a response that was like, "Oh, thank you for your concerns. We're doing everything we can." Um, and it wasn't long after that that there was outbreaks declared at two of the man camps. There was several outbreaks at the LNG Canada site in Kitimat, which is where they're going to be processing. They're planning to process the LNG before they ship it overseas. And it's really frustrating that it took so long for them to, and they didn't shut them down. So they reduced, just recently, they reduced the number of workers that they're allowed to have on not just the Coastal GasLink project, but multiple projects. So the Trans Mountain Pipeline, the Site C Dam, and Coastal GasLink, and then the LNG Canada site. So they've reduced the number of workers that they're allowed to have, but they already had multiple outbreaks. So two of the CGL man camps and then the LNG Canada plant. So the way that things sort of have been working, I don't even want to say working because it's not working. The way that they determine that an outbreak is over is 2 weeks after the last person that was known to be infected on site. And so if they declare an outbreak, for example, at one of the man camps, from what I know, they only report on the numbers of people that are on site. So that doesn't include local people that are working there, that are isolating at home or test positive after they've gone home. And that outbreak is declared over after 2 weeks of the last person that got it from that site. So we are still seeing positive cases and the ripple and after effects of those outbreaks in community. And so that doesn't count the numbers of people that were sent home from work to self-isolate, tested positive, but before they tested positive or before they even knew that there was an outbreak or that they could have the virus, were passing it on to their family and people in their community. So we've had, unfortunately, 3 Wet'suwet'en elders pass in the last couple of weeks. And I want to be really respectful of the families that are grieving right now. And I know that, and I also want to be really clear that we have never taken a position against any of the people that are finding employment through these projects. You know, I think that the government and industry have done a really good job of impoverishing our communities, stealing our resources, and putting legislation and laws in place that make it really, really difficult for our community members to sustain themselves. And even if you want to sustain yourself traditionally, like the impact of industry on our territories is so heavy that it's really difficult to do that. And so people do depend on working within, you know, the Canadian economy to provide for their families. And we understand that and we empathize with that. And I think it's really important. No matter how difficult, you know, it might be, because of, like, I know what my personal boundaries are and my personal choices, but I absolutely understand why those people are taking those jobs within that industry. And, you know, it's Coastal GasLink and LNG Canada that are creating the environments that, the unsafe working environments that these people are contracting COVID and bringing it to their communities. And all three of those elders that have passed that are Wet'suwet'en elders can be traced back to those projects through Coastal GasLink man camps and the LNG Canada site in Kitimat. And it's really, sorry, I haven't even talked about it. It's really maddening, um, devastating, and I think one of the things that's so apparent is that we're seeing a lot of things on the news around the vaccinations, and there was an update from Dr. Bonnie Henry, I think it was last week or the week before, and she was asked a question about these 23 seniors that died in Norway from getting the vaccine. And her response was super casual, like, well, we expect these kinds of things to happen with any vaccine. And I was so floored because I think that our worldview and our values around our elders are so polar opposite of what was expressed in that response. There's things being said like, well, they've lived their lives. And that doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it any easier to have a grandparent or an elder, a knowledge keeper, or a language speaker die, either from COVID-19 or the vaccine, because that just means that they have so much more knowledge and wisdom that we can benefit from, and they are our most sacred resource. And it's really, I can't even think of the proper word. Like, I think it's so disrespectful for, our medical system to think that it's okay if these people are dying because they're old anyway, they've lived their life. But we have such a strong sense of responsibility to take care of these people, like they have done everything in their lives for the community. And I'm thinking of like one of the elders that we recently lost in particular that has like just contributed so much to the community and had so much knowledge that, it's like I've heard the expression before of like every elder that passes is like an entire library burning down, and it's really, the last couple of weeks have been really, really challenging in our community. And unfortunately, I don't think it's over. I think that so many people, like I was talking to a friend of mine and they're like, oh yeah, like isn't it so great? Like I was so happy to hear on the news that those COVID outbreaks are over. But it's just the way that they calculate, how long an outbreak lasts. So it's 2 weeks from the last person that was infected at that site. And I was like, no, no, we're just starting to feel the impacts in our community. And, these projects are not essential. Nobody's depending on these projects to heat their home. I think there's like a misconception around um, natural gas and LNG and like equating the two to like keeping people safe and warm or whatever. And what the project's actually producing, which is fracked gas to be shipped overseas. And so there's just nothing essential about this project.
Hmm.
And I know that the government is like really um, depending on projects like this to bring back some sort of stability to the economy. But with a global pandemic like this, like what is the risk worth?
Of course. In Jewish communities, we say after someone passes, may their memories be for a blessing. And so I really hope that those elders, their memories will be a blessing. And it's so tragic to hear that. I'm so sorry. And just really wish peace for all the families and all the people who are grieving right now. So thank you for sharing that, and our condolences.
Thanks.
In closing, looking forward, I think people obviously, like, part of the reason we wanted to do this interview is to kind of make sure that Wet'suwet'en kind of stays in the center of our thoughts, right? Like, even though a year has gone past, and even though we're living through this pandemic, you all are like still fighting for your territory, and fighting for our water, and to defend that land. And so I know that frequently you all are asking for people to come out and support the camp, or support in other ways. So can you just talk a little bit about what kinds of support you're looking for in the coming months, and maybe other actions or events that are happening that you'd want to draw people's attention to?
Hmm. Well, there are still campaigns happening targeting the investors and the contractors of the project. Um, there are things folks can do and people that can be contacted regarding the environmental permits. And one of the things that we've learned recently is that Coastal GasLink got a permit to divert the river, which to me sounds absolutely insane. And I don't even know how that would happen. Like, logistically, I'm like, where would they divert it to? How
Mhm.
are they going to do that? Like, it's just absolute insanity in my mind. I don't know what would be involved in that process, but I just know that it can't happen and it's not going to happen. So they are planning on, they were doing test drilling in the fall leading up to the winter, and they are planning on laying the pipe um, and drilling underneath the river this summer.
Mhm.
So that's definitely something that we're going to be um, gearing up for. I think I'm not sure exactly what their schedule looks like at this point, because there's obviously been a lot of delays. I know there's been delays in materials for the pipeline. There's also been delays um, in their actual work, like the surveying and clearing of the right of way, etc. Um, and of course, because of the pandemic and now the COVID outbreaks, there's more delays. And so I think there's going to be a lot of room for solidarity actions, campaigning, letter writing, information sharing, leading up to the summer when they plan to drill underneath the diverted river. Like the whole thing doesn't even make sense to me about how they were even able to get a permit to divert the river, but then like logistically how they plan on doing that. Because our salmon are spawning in that river in the summertime. So there's all kinds of things that just don't make sense about the project, that I just wonder um, who is still pushing the story that this is a good idea, this project. um, but yeah, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities. So I would just encourage folks to keep an eye on all of our social media platforms, our website. And so we have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And all those links can be found on our website at yintaccess.com. It's pretty simple, I think, on Facebook. If you at Gidimt'en, you'll find our Facebook page. Twitter is at Yinta_access. And sorry, did I say Twitter or Instagram?
You said Twitter.
Just kidding. Twitter is at Gidimt'en. And then our Instagram page is at Yinta_access.
Wonderful. Well, again, we've been speaking with Jennifer Wickham, who is a Wet'suwet'en land defender with the Gidimt'en clan. Again, we'll post all those links, and people should definitely, follow, like Jennifer was saying, and support when people can. And Jennifer, I mean, I know it's been a really difficult time, but I really appreciate, of course, everything you all are doing, but also just you for taking the time to speak with us and keep us updated on your beautiful struggle.
Thanks. I'm happy to do it anytime.